This Wednesday here at Holy Family Chapel, at our 12 noon Mass, there were two widows who came to worship and pray with us. And I thought to myself, they had to fight the traffic of the city and the construction that's going on here outside the hospital is no easy feat. And so I was talking to them before the Mass, and the one says, "Father, I have something special for you." And she digs into her purse, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what is this going to be? And she gives me a prayer card of her husband who died 6 weeks ago here in our hospital. And she said, "We were married 54 years, Father. I have a request that you would pray for the both of us." Still sharing a heavy grief of her heart, the loss of her spouse. She says, "I want to introduce you to my widow friend. She was a lawyer at Duquesne University for 40 years. And then the sisters here always ask people to read because they're the tried and true. And that day, Sister Carolyn invited this lawyer from Duquesne to read. She did a splendid job. And after the Mass, the widow said to me, "For 6 weeks I ate the cafeteria food here at Mercy. We're going to go to a special place today. I hope you don't mind." And the two widows went off in friendship. And they deposited something in my life that day. The readings tell about the tale of two widows today. They're featured as extremely vulnerable people. Many people scorned them. They dressed in black attire. They were shunned by society. Their lives were hampered because they had no support system, not only of a spouse, but because they were on the fringes of begging. There was no welfare system, there was no Social Security, there was no pension, there was no monthly check. They were not the breadwinners. They were beggars in a heartless society. Not an easy position to be in. The widows and the orphans were seen as the least and the most threatened in society. This first widow of the town of Zarephath takes place in the 9th century BC in 1 Kings chapter 17 today. Elijah confronts this ruthless king, Ahab, and he has a very wicked wife, Jezebel. And they worshipped all these false gods, which led them to greater apostasy, idolatry. And if that wasn't bad enough, they tried to get the people to worship substitute Baals, false gods. Not much different than our society today. Well, Elijah says to King Ahab, "All your evil work and your evil deeds you will not see in this country dew or rain." Elijah sees, as he goes into hiding, this widow. And there's a severe famine and drought in the land. And she's in great dire desperation. She's a widow. She has a son to care for in their last meal. How low does it go? You know that feeling? I'm sure you do. She has no means and no meals and no money and no hope and no future. Life is bleak. A prophet comes by and asks this widow, "Do you have a drink? Can I have a morsel of bread?" And just like in the New Testament, the Samaritan woman at the well, Jesus said to that widow something that she could give, "Could I have a drink?" something ordinary, something within her grasp of capability. Now, this widow was a foreigner, by the way. She's nameless, she's destitute, she's a pagan. She was not of the Jewish religion. Her life had hit rock bottom. It's when our life hits rock bottom that we receive divine grace. That's the point of the story. It's in our vulnerability. It's when God is at bay in our lives, and our lives are in a bottomless pit, and we have nowhere else to turn but God. That's the point. And she provides for Elijah. She trusts in God. She shares a solidarity of an alliance with a foreigner. And this generosity is mirrored in the gospel of a widow too, who finds her strength not in power, not in privilege, not in excess. Jesus became poor for us by offering himself for our sins on the cross, so that we might become rich in grace for this world. I ask myself every day, after 30 years being a priest, did I deposit faith into the world today? Or did I withdraw? Are you a deposit person or are you a withdraw person? The divine comes in our lives in our greatest vulnerabilities, in our greatest need. It's when our ego gets knocked around and God rides in and he begins to rule and reign in our lives. It's a powerful moment in our lives. It's a moment of grace. This widow was linked to the God of giving. And when you link your life to the God of giving, you can give and give and give and give, and there's a bottomless pit, because giving will never run out. But it's when we hoard and we clutch on and we cling to these substitute Baal gods. Oh, we store them up, don't we? We amass them, pleasures and honors and privileges and money and popularity. We curry them, and they become their dead ends. We become less than generous. They become our God. God is love. And those who know God give God's love away to others. Throughout the Bible, that's repeated. If you want to increase your faith, share your faith. If you want to be a minister of joy to others, it will come back to you 100-fold. If you give your life in love, in sacrifice for others, you're going to receive a new life. And if you're at peace within the meadow of your own soul, in the chambers of your own heart, wherever you go, you will be a harbinger of peace. Oftentimes the world says, it's what I get. Christianity says, it's what I give. It's what I sacrifice for. Now the scribes and the Pharisees, they're mingling and milling around the temple with elaborate robes, special greetings, privileged seats, places of honor, lengthy prayers, liked recognition to the nth degree of self-esteem, made sizable donations and broadcasted so everybody knew their name. It was all up in lights. It was in stone. I made a contribution. That's the classy hoarding mode of privilege, entitlements, titles, public displays. Those prerogatives have nothing of Christianity. The widow, she goes to the temple to pray. Oh, she contributes to the treasury, as any good and faithful participating member would do, for the glory of God. She gave from her poverty. It's only the small gifts with a big heart that make a difference. And Jesus says to his disciples, this is a teachable moment, fellas. Don't look good on the outside. Be good on the inside. Don't be like the scribes and the Pharisees who look holy, or look good, or look righteous, but they're as cold and indifferent. And they're so bad that they even devour the purses and the houses of the poor widows. What's Jesus saying? You know the saying, when a person loses a loved one, and then when their house gets ransacked, it's not bad enough that they've lost their loved one, they go after their possessions as well. That's how bad it goes. God sees all that we give, and that's all that really matters. Are we an unselfish person? Or are we a selfish person? It's revealed to the world every day. God has his special eye on the least and the lost and the lonely and the little ones. And when we love them, we love him. And when we love him, he rescues us from our selfishness. He rescues us from our pride and our self-sufficiency. He rescues us from our Baals. Do you ever notice it's the small gifts, it's the insignificant deeds, it's the silent prayers that we offer each day of our lives with humility and grace that offer a powerful lesson upon our life. Almsgiving is most pleasing to the Lord. The Lord gave us hands to give, hearts to love, and people to share with. The Courier of Ars in the 18th century, St. John Vianney said, "A house of charity will never be poor." For 2,000 years, I imagine, the clamor of those 2 copper coins that went into that kettle reverberate to this night today. The widow's mite, when she realized that she was part of something far bigger than she could ever imagine. Her small life's contribution was a participation in God's work of salvation on this earth. Do you believe that? She trusted God. She had faith in God. And she loved God. It's that same love that gathers us here today. Why? Because we are all poor. We are all beggars at this table. And God lavishes us with his love so that we won't become greedy. Greed isolates us, builds up walls between others. But generosity unites us to God and unites us to our neighbor. On Wednesday, when she dug into her purse and gave me this prayer card of her husband who died, I put it in my prayer book. And I've been praying that